If you've ever had your R5 or R6 focus on anyone but your intended subject during a crucial moment, changing this one setting should help. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief overview of one-shot and servo shooting modes and explain this magic setting with a few examples. This might just affect how you shoot completely, at least it did for me. Alright, so in shots like this where you have just a nice family photo, you typically use one-shot mode, and that's going to be because you're not moving, your subject's not moving, or if they are, it's very slight, but typically in these types of shots, right, people try and stand still. You can also tell if you're in one shot when you start to focus. So I'm just clicking the AF on button here in the back. You see that that green square is there. The green indicates that you are in one-shot mode. And while you're in this mode, the arrows actually let you indicate which face that you're targeting. So you can swipe left and right on your joystick, and you can actually individually pick different faces. And this works for eye tracking as well. So again, I have my star button here in the top right switch between just face tracking and the eye detection. So now I've just turned the eye detection on, and now I can also swipe between different eyes with my joystick. So as I mentioned, the setting that I want to show you is when you're in the other mode, servo mode, but we need to check something first. So let's go to our menu. We're looking at the AF main menu, submenu number 5, and this top option right here, initial servo AF point for face targeting, tracking, whatever you want to call it. So by default, it should be set to auto. So let's jump back to our image. And again, I'm still in one-shot mode. You can see that by the green box. I want to quickly switch into servo. So if you saw my other video right, I have my multi-function button up here, switch between one-shot and servo, just like that, super quick. And if you notice now, I'm in servo mode, but I still have the arrows around the faces. So I can still switch between them with my joystick. But now if I start to focus, that box turns blue. So that lets me know that I am indeed in servo mode. For a situation like this, I mean, that's fine. I'm standing still, you know, my subjects are standing still, it's no big deal. But what happens when I'm in a situation where there are lots of faces, there's lots of movement going on, and with this auto setting, the camera is basically just deciding what face to focus on. So rather than letting the camera just automatically decide which face to pick, I'm going to go back to our menu and go to that option again, and I'm going to select the top option, initial AF point set for face tracking. We'll hit OK, and then we'll go back to our image. Here you can see there's now this box right here in the center, this white box. I can actually move this around if I wanted to, but I usually like to leave it somewhere dead center because I know most of the time my subject is going to be centered, and if they're not, I can easily adjust my composition. So now with this setting enabled, I can basically force the camera to focus on any individual subject that I want it to. So if I keep the box over the bride, for example, while I'm in servo mode and I start to focus, it immediately goes to her. Now let's say I wanted to focus on dad. If I move that box over him, it'll start to track him. If I wanted to start tracking mom, it'll start tracking mom. And so whoever that the camera is tracking, if they're moving or if I'm moving, it's going to stay locked on to them. And this works for the eye detection too. So if I turn on eye detection, if I hover over mom, there it finds her eye, and it's staying on either of her eyes really. Now if I do the same over the bride, it finds her, and then same for dad. Let's switch back to that auto setting. So here's a different example. This is kind of what I consider like a critical moment, right? You want to capture the bride's facial expression as she's walking down the aisle. It's focused on the bride's face, that's fine. But what if it had found someone else, like this person in the background or her dad? But with all these different people in the background and just faces everywhere, how are you going to decide where to focus? So we see that the camera has found like her face, and it's giving us the option to pick others. So who knows if it's going to pick someone else while this moment is happening. So in this mode, rather than telling the camera which person to focus on, it's going to find, you know, those random eye or face out there, depending on what you have on, and then you have to, you know, move your joystick over, then focus, compose your shot, and it's clunky. So now let's swap back to the other option. Let's get out of auto for a second. We'll select the top one, we'll hit OK, and now you can see that I have that white box that I can easily put over my subject. So if I want to focus on the bride as she's moving, there she is. If I wanted to focus on dad, it'll find him. That way you're not accidentally focusing on someone in the background. So I'm able to easily pick and choose while my subjects are moving where I want to focus and what subject I want to track specifically. And because this is in servo mode, it's going to constantly track them. So whether I'm going crazy with the camera, which I don't know why it would be, but basically just to indicate, you know, some sort of movement here that goes on, the camera is still going to stay locked on to that subject and that subject only. And you can change your view for this too. So if we just hit the info button, right, it shows you all of your different settings. That way you know exactly what you're looking at. For the majority of a wedding day, I usually leave it at this menu so I can see my shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and then I can also see the level that's actively moving here, in addition to, you know, how many shots I have, battery indicator, things like that. But especially when it's time for receptions and dancing and things like that, I'm not so much concerned about those because my settings typically stay the same. So if I hit the info button, I usually just get to maybe like here, so I can see the box and kind of like nothing else until I start to focus. If you found this tip helpful, I hope that you'll subscribe for future videos, and don't forget to hit that like button as well. Thanks for watching.